Everybody all set? Leanne, you're all set, right?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. All right, we're going to start the audit meeting. Welcome everyone to the end of the month audit meeting for Town of Monroe. I know that attendance has been taken and all members are present. And I think we just have a couple signatures.
The last one was right there.
We need the signatures.
I think we got covered. Yeah, three.
That was the last one?
Yeah.
Yep.
We one voucher for discussion that I talked about regarding legal services that can take care of that.
We have a message in with Lewis and Greer to call us back on that.
So we, I have a copy of it. Do you have a copy of it?
I don't.
Okay, that's fine.
It was for $58.
Yeah, so we had a, we were billed for a portion of an hour for when Carla spoke with our outside counsel for tax certiorari cases. It was in relation to cannabis. And I didn't think it was appropriate that we were being billed for that. So we have a call. I'm asking that they don't charge them for that because, you know, I don't think it's appropriate for what the question was. So they're usually really good about that. I'm sure that $53 or $58.
$58.50.
Yeah, it's not going to be a big deal. They've always worked with us in the past. So that's the only one that was questionable. I think all the other vouchers all have signatures at this time.
The only other discussion was that emergency repair at Fort Avenue. And it was emergency.
Did we sign that?
We did sign it. I don't know if you wanted to mention it.
Yeah, I think it was. This is for, we have a water line break on January 6th, and one of our contractors that we have on call for emergency services for the water department was contacted. They were able to take care of the break at Fort Daffodil Drive. The entity that took care of it was the W.J. Morris Excavating Incorporated. They do a lot of work on water infrastructure on an emergency basis. And there's invoice 13515 for $4192.46. So I don't know if the board did that or not. I'm sure you signed the voucher. Okay, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to pay the bills as audited. So,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And I don't have any other business for the audit portion of the meeting unless other members do. If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the audit meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks,
All right, we're going to get started this evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to regular meeting of the Monroe Town Board for January 25th, 2022. And ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Stewart.
Here.
Councilmember Noonan.
Here.
Councilmember Van Tassel.
Here.
Councilmember Donahue.
Here.
Supervisor Kuznier.
Here, and would everyone please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everyone. First item of business this evening is approval of minutes. We've got 3 sets. I think all board members were present for the January meetings, so I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes for December 28, 2021, which was an audit meeting.
Motion to approve.
That was actually the regular meeting on the 28th. Yeah.
28 was the regular meeting.
Yeah, the odd meeting will be back.
And I was not present.
Right.
I will abstain.
And there were some minor grammatical.
Yeah, I think you already made aware.
So I did make those corrections as well as changing in the organizational minutes from the council people I had as pulled in by mistake.
Okay, so just to be clear, the motion is to approve the minutes for our regular board meeting for December 28, 2021. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
I don't think I ever had a motion in a second on that, right?
Oh, was there not a second?
I never had a motion in a second.
Motion to approve.
All right,
Second.
who made the first motion? All right, and withdraw the first motion.
Yeah, we gotta make sure. I'll withdraw the first motion.
All right, so I entertain a motion to once again approve the minutes for a regular meeting of December 28, 2021.
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
There we go. And then we can take these together if you like for January 4, 2022, which is the organizational meeting, and January 11th, which is the regular town board meeting. Somebody like to move those.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Just a brief update on COVID. While following the news, there was a Nassau court a day or two ago that last night, was it last
9
night?
o'clock last night.
No, it feels like it was days ago.
Oh, I know.
Which agreed with the argument that the requirement to wear a mask was unconstitutional, and that the legislature was the only body that the authority to make the law require wearing a mask. And then this evening, several hours ago, a stay was issued by the court, is that right?
It was issued, yes.
Okay, so that's back in force in effect, but there is confusion, I know, with the Department of Education.
Well, if I may.
Sure.
Since I've been dealing with this since
Absolutely.
last night. The Nassau County Supreme Court decision is binding only in Nassau County. So it is not binding up here at all. And I think that's part of the concern that everyone is having, the confusion is that the Supreme Court in New York was the trial level court. A lot of people think Supreme Court. So whatever happens in Nassau County is not binding up here. In fact, Albany County in November issued the opposite decision. So there's conflicting decisions, which is why the appellate division is looking at it, and ultimately the Court of Appeals may look at it. So irrespective of what Nassau County does, right now in Saratoga County, the mask mandate is still in effect.
And I can tell you that Saratoga County is not enforced.
I just wanted to clear up the legal part.
Yeah. And well, I for case law, as other cases come forward, I guess, right? They can point to that decision.
Maybe.
Yeah. So on the numbers, right now in Saratoga County, there's currently 75 individuals that are hospitalized. The number of individuals that are hospitalized that are not fully vaccinated, that number is 37. So it's basically half the people in the hospitals are those that have not been fully vaccinated. Demonstrating, I think that's very important to make sure you're fully vaccinated with your boosters. Here in the town of Monroe, we received home test kits last week. We dispensed all 700 of them rather quickly. We were able to secure an additional 700. And my office has provided another 55 residents with those home test kits. So we've got approximately another 650. If anybody's interested, we have them here at Town Hall. They just need to stop in my office, show a photo ID, proof of residency, and they can secure that. We also was able to get N95 masks, which we're handing out upon request. We have the information on our website also, so anyone interested in those 2 items, or if you know someone needs a vaccination, I can be helpful in that, just let you know, and I'll take it from there. Closer to home here in town of Monroe, there are currently 147 positive cases, and in the village of South Glens Falls, that number is 39. Item 3 on the agenda this evening is the waste hauling RFP. I think board members have all got a copy of that. The question for the board this evening is what term you would like for the contract. We've had them as short as a year. I think we've had them as long as 3 years. The last contract we're coming off of is 2 years. So the question would be, do you want to do another 2-year contract, or do you want to do a 9-month and a 21-month contract, because we got an agreement for an extension from the current vendor. And also with that, we need to determine the bid opening date. Just keep in mind that the agreement is for a 90-day extension of the current contract. So, obviously we have to take action before that time period expires. So I don't know what the board's pleasure is on that.
Is there any benefit to any particular length of contract at this point in time?
Well, if it's hard to say. You could bid it each way, required as part of the FB. You could do a 1 year and a 2 year. Historically, when we've done longer contracts and we've gotten pretty good rates, we weren't subject to the increases when you had fuel costs and rise and things like that. But you also run, on the other hand, the other risk too. You do a longer contract and it's a little bit higher and you agree to it, if things go down. So there's pluses and minuses on both sides.
And my recommendation would be to ask for pricing on both the 1 year and a 2 year, because it makes the inflated pricing now that we don't know off. Right. Somebody may be more aggressive offer discount.
So that would be,
Again, we're talking about the RFP.
yes, I mean, yeah. It's not, we're not getting locked in together, we're just sending it out with the terms of the RFP. So would you want to do a 9-month for the rest of this year?
Well, I mean, that's to me, that sounds like it makes sense to true up so if it comes due at the end of the year. That said, lots of things come due at the end of the year. So I don't know what the load is on the supervisor's office, and if it helps to have off the calendar year cycle. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
I'm fine with the 9 and the 21 months, and we throw both out, see what they come back at.
When would you like to schedule the bid opening date for?
Well, probably as soon as we can, because we're against the timeline, right? So
It would expire, the current agreement expire March 31st.
Right.
So we have a board meeting second Thursday of February. I'm sorry, March. I don't know how close you want to make it. I would say probably the first board meeting in February, give enough time. Or not, no. I don't know. I think
for bid opening or put it out.
to put it out. And then we would open it on that. I mean, we're going to submit it, we're going to make it available as soon as board approves the terms of it.
I mean, first board meeting in March is fine with me.
Oh, okay.
Not that, I mean, February just feels a little tight.
Okay, so what's the date on that? So that's the board meeting. We should probably have a couple of days before that, so that counts up an opportunity to review.
So have them come in that Friday before.
So that's
How much notice do I need though, Carla, to put in the newspaper?
There's no specific requirement, because it's an RFP.
Okay, so.
So it seems to me if we go out to, tomorrow, 26th, you're actually giving them over a month to get these back. I don't know if we're gonna need over a month,
Did you say February or
but March.
Oh, March, I apologize, I thought you said February.
Right.
That's why I was thinking, it's too quick.
So March 4th, we usually do what, 2 PM bid openings?
Yes.
So we're,
Yes.
so we'll need a motion on that.
Yes,
So the motion would include the period, which is 9 and 21 months, and bid opening date of March 4th at 2 PM here at Town Hall.
So,
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 4 on the agenda, I received an email from an individual who lives in Johnstown, New York, who owns property in Town Row for over 10 years, over on Fort Edward Road, and is requesting a speed limit reduction. I don't know if it's much of a board or not. I don't know if she addressed it to Tom's supervisor, so I don't know if you got it or not, but anyway, Nancy Shrevoko, who owns property, well, she resides at 36 Rosewood Avenue, Johnstown, New York, owns property at 77 Fort Edward Road, and she outlines that she's owned the property since 2010 with her husband. It's a heavily traveled road. The speed and the vehicles being a major concern, especially over the past years. The property is located on the curve of this road, and since 2017 or 2018, there have been 4 accidents, which she details. The first one was summer of 2017 or 18, where a car hit a large tree in the front yard, no injuries, speed was a factor. Summer of 2019 afternoon, her son and grandson were in the front yard throwing a football. Her son said that had he not turned when he did, he and my grandson would have probably been hit. Vehicle took down a utility pole by the driveway and hit the corner of the house. And the house was without power for several days. The vehicle landed in the front yard upside down, no injuries. Speeding, texting was a factor. Third incident was December 4th, 2021, around 3 PM. Vehicle took down the neighbor's fence, also the 20-foot flagpole in the front yard, and the steps on the front of the house. Vehicle landed in the front yard, no injuries, speed was a factor. And the final instance was this month, January 18th, 2022, around 8 PM. Vehicle missed the utility pole and the fence, hit her son's truck, and took out the rest of the front steps. Vehicle landed in the front yard, an ambulance was called. Driver may have had a medical issue that may or may not have contributed to the incident. Not sure about injuries, speed, and medical issues were factors. She said she spoke with the Saratoga County Highway Department, senior engineer. He said the road design isn't a factor in these accidents, but the vehicle speed could be. She's also spoken with Saratoga County Sheriff. He too says the speed could be a major factor. So writing to us, asking if we could please look into the situation with a request for lowering the speed limit. Hopefully with a lower speed limit, law enforcement patrolling the area, future accidents will be fewer, and the possibility of injuries or worse will be prevented. I said that I'll bring it up at this evening's board meeting. The town did request in September 15th of 2010, speed limit reduction from the existing 45 miles per hour. And I don't have the results of that, but obviously it was not changed. The office conducted it, actually, State DOT did do a speed limit investigation of the Fort Edward Road, responded to the same request on a letter dated April 20th of 2009. At that time, they determined that the existing 45 mile per hour speed limit was appropriate for the conditions experienced. So they did not change it. So my recommendation would be to do a resolution requesting additional review since 11, 12 years elapsed.
Yes.
So I think that requires a resolution.
yes.
So somebody like to move, for a request to New York State Department of Transportation for a reduction in speed limit on Fort Edward Road between, State Route 197 and Bluebird Road.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Am I giving them a specific speed limit in there?
Just a reduction, they're gonna do a traffic study, any reduction would be based on the results of the study. I think that people would like to see it as low as possible.
There's a heck of a lot more. I've been there, I know,
Yeah, so I think that's, you know, it's especially in bad weather, well, we had a town truck had issues there. Last year, yeah. Alrighty, item 5 on the agenda is Highway Department, a couple of items. The first one I have is we need to add to a 2021 PO an additional $5,100 for Morton Salt. I don't know what this is happening. We had to do an adjustment to a PO for fuel at the last board meeting. You know, the department has a need to watch, you know, when coming up against the POs. We authorized the opening of $50,000 PO on October 12th. And now we're for the 2021 fiscal year, we're $5,100 over that. So the money's there in the budget. But it does require that the PO be extended to cover $5,100. So I entertain a motion to open additional PO in the amount of $5,100 for rock salt for 2021 from Morton Salt Company in Valentine, Illinois.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Motion passed. Does anybody want to comment on that? Next item for highway, there's a request, actually a statement, not a request, that the highway superintendent will be moving one of the mechanics to the wage scale for mechanic MEO. Individual was hired in 2016. It's Dustin Underwood, and this was not brought to us. It was not requested at budget. We didn't budget money for it, and I believe the highway superintendent only has the authority to do that kind of unilateral action if the town has provided for it in the budget. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
So, you know, without looking at the budget, I don't know what the board's thoughts on it, but, you know, that's why we have budget workshops to find out what the future is for the next year. And, you know, I don't think they can do, well, they can't do it. You know, let the money be. So I don't know if the highway committee wants to review that, talk with the highway superintendent, figure out how they're gonna pay for it.
I would like the highway committee to talk to the department head,
Okay,
figure out, get the whole story, number one, which happened in executive session. If warranted, but, and find a way, to make it happen, if it should happen, because it's my understanding that this particular employee's been asking for a while for the contract, it should have been brought forward. So now we got an employee potentially, I don't know the story. I don't want to see harm if there's merit to that discussion, so.
okay, so we'll send it to the highway committee for review recommendation. And I guess we'll have to make sure that he's not telling him he's being paid for January 30th for the board action. Okay. under highway, I think board members have got a copy of the highway tractor mower bid documents. Paul's looking for approval to put the bid specs out for bid. I don't have the board had, did you have that document? I can do what I have right here. I'll look at it. So this is something we had budgeted for 2022 year. We budgeted $124,840 for a roadside mower with 2 flail mowers with it. And this is potentially to replace the mower we have. So the way the bid documents are, it's either outright purchase or a trade. So we'll have options when whomever gets back to us if they're interested in it. We'll send it out to the usual dealers that respond to this request. So I'm okay with that. Yep, we'll send it out. So we will need to establish bid opening date and time for that. Is that accurate?
Because I have some comments for Paul. Just
Yes,
to clean up.
oh, I'm sorry.
For Paul, that's okay, just to clean up the bid documents, so I will send them to him tomorrow. We can still.
So
set the date.
we'll seek town board approval to put it out subject to review by council and highway superintendent.
Yes,
Make sure all legal concerns are addressed.
yes, there's just a couple of things that need to be fixed,
All right.
nothing substantive.
All right, so I don't have a recommendation for a bid date on it. Yeah, I don't have a recommendation, so what the board like to do? My recommendation here would be to give them some time because I think the longer they do, the more opportunity for additional members. We could do it at the same time until we just did for.
Which is about a month, which seems reasonable.
Yeah.
So it's probably at the same time.
So, so the resolution would be authorizing the highway superintendent to put out the bid specs for a new tractor, highway tractor and mower that includes a trade option or an outright purchase, subject to review and approval by town council. For March 4th, 2 p.m.
So
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Is it okay that both bid openings are the same exact time?
I would do it at 2:10, maybe. 2 and 2:10.
They can be here at 2 and then we'll start at 2:10.
Okay.
That work?
That's fine.
So it's the legal document, I'm gonna advertise it for 2
And-
o'clock, is what I'm asking.
You're gonna advertise it as 2:10.
Thank you.
2:10. So that's highway department. Item 6 on the agenda is the building department. What I have there is, I think all board members get a copy of correspondence from our zoning administrator in relation to Hall's request for a change of zoning. As part of that process, in order for that process to move forward, the town board has to refer to the planning board for review and comment. And I know that council has provided a brief resolution for that. So the first question is that what the board wants to do at this point in time?
We should, to refer to the planning board for comment.
Yes.
I have some questions I want to ask Jim Martin. I haven't been able to do that, in this time, so I'm not comfortable right now pushing it forward. Before I talk to Jim Martin, just my own kind of understanding what's going on with the, request there. But that's my own thought on that.
I don't even know, if you had a chance, Mark, to review the documents and
Former council member Hogan gave that to me and some of the, many other items have been passed on, so I have a chance to read on that, summarize on that. Nothing changed, 6 lots, I believe.
Yeah.
Parcels, some commercial.
so, any other comments?
Does everyone understand the purpose of this, that why we have to go through this process? That we've already referred to PUD over to planning. So this is not the PUD part, this is just there's slivers in the back that are in the residential district. And he's asking that to be moved into the C1 district so that we can actually have PUD. You can't, the way your code is written, you can't have a PUD in residential. So by, all you're doing is, you still have, if this is a local law, it'll be changed. So you revert back over to the planning board for their recommendation. They kick it back to you and say, we think you should make this zoning change. It's ultimately up to you to make that zoning
Right,
change.
yeah, it's still.
This is not something you're kicking over to planning board, and planning makes the ultimate decision.
Right.
You're asking planning to kind of go through the due diligence and then bring it back to you, and you decide. You don't have to take their recommendation. I want to make sure Councilman Newman understands this is not, you're just pushing this to the planning board for their, for them to look at, because their board will deal with this kind of information.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think this probably can still pass even if I don't decide to approve, you know, right? I mean, that's, I don't have to be a part of, or does it have to be unanimous from our board?
No.
Right, so I'm okay with letting this process. Do we have to have a motion to present the planning board?
Yes,
I am, thank you for,
I just wanted to make sure,
Yeah, I
it's a
appreciate that.
little odd because you have a clause in your code, which I think we need to remove. Because this, I'm not sure why this goes to the planning board, but that's what the code requires. It's just a local law.
Well,
I'm not sure what you were saying. I personally would like to get it moved at least for the next process, that doesn't like us. And I know that the applicant's been waiting, he knows it's a process. Just get it over the planning board. Good luck moving forward, also.
It's gonna come back to us as well. We're not, we can act on it ourselves after their recommendations.
You have to.
So then I would say that take their recommendations and.
yeah, I think, I want to be respectful of my colleague who's requested more time, to get answers from our zoning administrator. So, at this time, I would be supportive of, deputy supervisor's position on it. But, you know, somebody wants to make a motion. So, that's fine.
I'll make a motion to move over for review. Planning board. Second.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I will oppose. And I'm opposed. Any abstentions? So motion carries 3-2. Do we have to do any more on that? Next item on the agenda is number 7, townwide trails. As the board knows, we were fortunate enough to receive a $250,000 grant from Office of Parks, Recreation and Historic Preservation from New York, and we've also received grants from Saratoga County 2 years in a row now. And so the question is, I'd reached out to the LA group to see if they would be interested in administering the grant. I've actually received 2 calls now, past 2 days, from Parks and Rec that wanted to talk to me about some deadlines that are required in order to get the monies from the federal government. as a pass through. So I've had a chance to talk with the state office on that, but I did not hear back from the LA group to see if they wanted to provide a proposal to us. I just wanted to update the board on where we are with that. And I think I mentioned that a member of our planning board, Eric Bergman, is very interested in assisting whatever we do along that trail, along the river, but that trail he wants to be a part of that, which is great. So I actually spoke with him today on that. So I'll update the board as soon as I hear back from the LA group. I mean, the proposal like this, I think it's important to have professional oversight of the grant, make sure we're doing everything appropriately so that we can get the funding.
The LA group was a part of getting the grant.
Yeah.
The process, so that they already have to keep on.
Right. So I'll keep you posted on that. Number 8 on the agenda I have is Nexam. I believe the board has received a copy of correspondence from representatives of Nexam. And there are some questions that came up. Did you receive correspondence, council, as well? From one of the
From Mr. Kushera,
Yeah.
and I responded back to him and to a couple of photos here.
was that in relation to the pilot?
It was related to the pilot, the access drive. Yep.
All right, so I know Monday this week, you're looking to find out whether we work with the assessor and figure out the cost of the pilot in these cases, and we do not have that information yet. But there are some other questions that you would like addressed. I think that is in the January 13th email to myself and town council regarding the decommissioning bond and the utility and access easement. So just a refresher on the decommissioning bond. They're indicating that the town engineer has agreed that the decommissioning cost is appropriate, but recommended that the planning board, town board determine their acceptance of the bond form. I don't think we have a dollar amount on that yet. So I don't
There's
know.
a dollar amount, but I'm gonna email out to the town engineer just to verify the piece of everything as well.
All right, so we need to hear back from the town engineer on that. And then they've attached a bond form for legal review.
That's what I was looking at, the email. about.
Okay, and they're indicating next sample will pay for legal review. If acceptable, we would appreciate a formal notice to the planning board so that they would feel comfortable providing approvals for the project which has otherwise been viewed favorably. And then item 2, utility and access easement. As you recall, Nexamp has proposed building a road to town specifications up to the subbase of New York State DOT for a foot gravel top in return for ability to use this newly constructed road to access the parcels where the project is proposed. So they're looking for, follow up to the presentation at our last meeting, I believe, I can't remember, a couple meetings ago maybe. And they indicated they'll work with the town highway supervisor to discuss the details. And they're looking to know if they can speak with the highway superintendent if this is the next correct step. And the final item is it's their understanding the town will be issuing a town-wide pilot requirement for town board resolution. Has there been a date set for that meeting? We haven't gotten that far yet. We have some more work to do. So I guess probably the only thing that we don't have clarity on is what the board wants to do, if anything, with their request for utility and access. I don't know if the board is ready to discuss that tonight. I don't know, Mark, I don't think you were part of those conversations last year. The board would like to review and maybe submit your thoughts on it. And bring it up to the next board meeting. That works for everybody.
That's fine.
And we'll have some more answers on the pilot issue by then. So we don't have to take any other action tonight, right?
Correct.
Item 9 is water department. We got a lot of things going on there. Had a long conversation with Mike Mooney yesterday. As you recall, we had directed him to work with the town engineer in my office as far as utilizing Jeff Cruz for what our historical spending and financials have been for all the water districts. And so he has put together, and I think all the board members have a copy of that rate analysis that he has done. There's a couple of time sensitive things that we need to consider. I'm gonna hit some of the highlights and doing the rate analysis. One of the things that he recognized in talking with Jeffrey that we had our capital projects, which are painting of the water tower and the Van Buren extension for the force main, which we had lumped into the regular water budget. His recommendation is that that should be pulled out and be separate so that when they look at historical numbers for rates, it's based on operational and maintenance, and that capital projects are removed from that because they can really skew what kind of rates you need from year to year. So that's approximately $410,000 that you would separate from the general from the financial accounting. If you recall, we consolidated our water districts, so they're not broken out by each water district. We only have one water district. And so what we're trying to do here is make sure we're on the right side of the comptroller audit, because they would frown upon having those capital projects included in there. So his recommendation is to pull the $410,000 out of the budget, put it in a capital fund, and keep it separate from the operational budget. In talking with the town engineer and looking over the financials, he's got a recommendation of revising capital charge to $56 per EDU. And the reason is that the capital fee is to cover the debt. So a simple calculation, if you done the math there over 285,000 divided by number of EDUs comes out to $55.41, and his recommendation was to make it even $56. The previous recommendation was debt minus the tower rent revenue divided by EDU. He also recommends establishing a minimum usage of 36,000 gallons per year per unit. And what this will do is ensure that every customer is billed for at least the minimum charge. He says there's many reasons this is important. A simple example would be to a resident that only occupies a home for 6 months out of the year would not get a bill, and that's not equitable to the other ratepayers in the district, which is a very good point. And he's recommending that the usage rate be set uniformly at $2.60 per thousand gallons. And he says that this rate is adequate to cover all expenses with a contingency of $200,000, which is important for any emergencies that may come up. So, I don't know if the board, I'll stop right there. Any comments from the board, at this point? Just recommendation.
So I just have a couple questions. What's, so our current way we do it, it's a minimum charge unless you go over, correct? Then you're paying your, no,
At present, the way the rates are set, there is no minimum charge.
There's no minimum
It's
charge.
$2.60 per 1,000 gallons of usage. Plus the rate of $36 per EDU for the capital charge.
you're right. I guess I don't know why I asked the question, but I know, but what would an average bill, how would an average bill change? And we're gonna probably get them soon to see them, correct? What would an average bill change look like? 'Cause I know like at my house, I always just pay the minimum. I said the minimum last year was,
Well, when we had 6 different districts, some of the districts did have minimum bills because of the debt that they had in the districts. And then there were 2 districts, District 2 and 4, that had no minimum bills at all because there was no debt in those districts.
right,
So now combining it all the debt is lumped together. And so what Mike Mooney is suggesting is that everybody pay a minimum bill. That's the way I'm understanding this.
So I have some notes here, just want to make sure I recorded accurately. So he gave the example in a rate comparison that if you have, let's say you have 50,000 gallons of usage annually, he said under the old methodology, it would be $179.50. Under what he's proposing here, it would be $186. But that's for, I think, District 1, you know, if you use that, because they have different rates.
right.
In the second to last page, he's got everything.
He's got it there.
Oh, okay, so
You can actually see the some are up and some are down. To the point before today, you know, we also are taking the, although we're spreading the debt across all of but also spreads expense across everybody, it's like that.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about it a little bit further down underwater, but we have translucent pipe. And that's extremely expensive to repair. You know, I'll talk about that a little bit later, but you know, we need to have a reserve fund set aside for that kind of work, and he has a recommendation on that. So, so at this point, he is saying that we would need those 3 resolutions to be approved. We can come back to that. But any more questions on the first action items?
Is that first action item would be approving the capital charge of $256 per EDU?
Yes, and it would be separated the $410,000 into a capital account. Take it out of operation.
And I guess just some comments on that I might still have here. There's no other calculations we can come up with. I just know that we, in terms of educating the public on why we make these decisions, I feel as if, you know, I think we did a good, some of us did a good job explaining the $36 increase. That's going to take effect, or hasn't it taken effect yet? I mean, it's taken effect at the beginning of the year, but have those bills gone out yet?
Not till March 1st.
So not till March 1st, and then prior to those going out, we are going to now up that to $56. But that's because we're going to be taking the money out of, we're not counting the rent on the towers. Is that the idea? Where that additional $20 came from?
So I think, I don't want to speak for Mike, but I think he was indicating that the rent would go into capital reserve.
Okay.
Which I think is a great idea, instead of using it to offset rates.
It
Because
is.
our rates are some of the lowest municipal rates.
Right. Right. Are we financially in a spot where this has to be raised, I guess is my question.
Yes.
So, and there's
No,
no.
I'll talk about that.
Okay. And I just want to make sure that, you know, we're still doing, you know, the least amount necessary ultimately.
Well, these are lower, it's actually, that's why this meeting took place, because of the initial recommendations were, you know, in some instances a little bit higher, and we didn't want them to be any higher than they have to be to make sure we're planning for the future. You know, the fact that we don't have a capital, we have no plan in place to do replacement, periodic replacement of translucent line, which has to happen. Very expensive. You know, that there could be catastrophic breaks down the road that just keep happening when you fix a section.
Right.
And so his recommendation is to, you know, take some, we have collectively, we have about $2 million, sort of $2 million fund balance. His recommendation is to put a minimum of $1 million in a capital reserve fund for, you know, replacing the translucent pipe, which is asbestos. And so you don't want to take it out. His recommendation is to leave it in the ground and put the pipe next to it, because you have all kinds of environmental requirements that you get involved with. And he says you don't want to go down that road because of the extremely expensive. So the second item, and we come back to that. I just want to get through this recommendation first, at least once. Second item is in relation to administrative operations of the water department. It's his firm belief that we can operate effectively our water department if we had a full-time clerk that was exclusively responsible for billing, answering questions regarding infrastructure, explaining how to hook up, available you know, whenever a resident has a question that's not out in the field. And I agree with them. I think we should establish a position of clerk, a full-time position for water department. They can operate out of my office if they have to. There's room in there a couple months. And he also indicated that if you had a full-time clerk that was charged with water billing and other administrative duties, and you had a full-time laborer, that department can be very effectively run. And he actually may have a couple names for us for a labor position in the near future. He had a death in the family, so he'll be out of town for next week. So I don't have any more information on that. But anyway, as he indicated in the memo, he says a strong recommendation that the board hire or transfer the existing clerk to solely work for the water department. He says, as I understand, the town's immediate goals are to upgrade the billing system and user interface that includes online bill pay and a portal with a future goal of billing on a quarterly basis. This cannot be achieved or sustained long-term without a clerk working exclusively for the water department. The budget includes funding for this position. As you know, that we have a dramatic level of savings in how we're operating our water budget right now. So the money's in there to create the position. I think we have budgeted for 3 positions in this year's water budget. And moving on, I talked briefly about fund balance. He indicates that the water department currently has a fund balance in excess of $2.5 million. The exact amount of existing fund balance can only be estimated at this time since the books have not been closed for 2021. However, he said it would be safe to establish a capital replacement reserve fund with $1 million. He says if the board agrees to these recommendations or a modified version of the the board will need the following resolution, and that's to create a capital reserve account and transfer $1 million from the fund to the balance, which that's subject to permissive referendum, so we'll have to follow the requirements of the law for that.
It's actually what I was just looking at.
Okay. That's item 3. Item 4, we touched on a little bit earlier in relation to asbestos pipe. It says, as you know, our water system contains a large amount of asbestos pipe in the old District 4. The Verge Group prepared the attached cost projection of what it would cost to replace these lines at some point in the future. Long-term plan will be to continually fund the capital replacement reserve to fund this and any other replacement projects. Item 5 is a budget with detail. He said attach or find the 2022 budget estimates with category details. The town of Monroe has never done this, where we broke it out, where you actually know what real actual electric costs are, things like that. And this is good because it helped the board or anyone who's interested get a better idea of the items that are included in the water department budget. And he said that's just informational, doesn't require action. And then the final item in his report is in relation to System Grove Water. The owner of System Grove has decided to start putting water lining at that project. He says this is being done at their own risk, and they're aware that the project is not fully approved and there may not be sewer capacity for it at this moment. This work will have to, a full-time inspector and engineer will certify that it's been completed pursuant to the plans. There's some issues with that work. I have a conference call tomorrow morning with special counsel for water and sewer on that, and the town engineer. There's some concerns about that work moving forward without all necessarily approval in place. So I'll have more information on that tomorrow. So I guess probably the easiest part of the discussion is where you want to go with the first item on the revised water rate and fee schedule, which included the items we just went over. So I'll entertain any additional conversation, comments on that.
I know that we need to ultimately move forward, and this is the first time we probably had the man with capacity and knowledge that Mike really has to offer this to us. So, and I appreciate that and I respect that. I don't want to keep being the no guy tonight, but again, the board is the board, big more than just me. I look at the rate changes and I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth because I know that our water rates are extremely low. They've been low. It's great. People love that. For the most part, most people are probably going to be just fine and okay with this. There's an estimated change of $6.50 for District 1, and then you got about $56 change for District 2, $18.50 change for District 3, $56 change for District 4. These are all increases. $20 change for District 5, and then District 6. Their bill gets adjusted by $14, so they're above this.
Well, they're also paying, they were paying more.
Right, so I guess I'm looking at it from an equitable change. So it's up and down. I guess ultimately, I do like numbers and they're just not, and I don't have any reason to not trust these numbers right now. They're just not making 100% sense to me, but I don't want to necessarily hold the board either in moving forward with this. But if there's any other discussion that might help me understand, and I'm not, again, I guess ultimately I'm not opposed to the change. I just know that we're going, we're trying to represent, at the end of the day, we'll be equal across the board, $186 for everybody. With their $56 capital charge. Now, is that something that's a yearly rate or a quarterly? If you go quarterly, so split up 4 times.
The
$56.
I'm assuming is an annual rate that you would split by however many times you want to bill. Right now, we're looking set to bill semi-annual.
So it's okay. Those are my comments at the current time. I don't know if there's any more.
Well, specific to item, 1A, C and D, I'm fully supportive of the moving money over the capital project. No question there. I also are a big fan of raising the rate from the 36 to the 56 that we just did, but when all things are considered in my mind, it makes a lot of sense. it's an increase, I get it, but it's spread across the entire user base. It is significantly less in my mind in contrast to the potential expense because of the lack of us having prior fortitude to put reserve funds in place. So especially with that asbestos pipe, I mean, that's a $10 million project or some number close to that. So the overall population of customers at the expenses spread across the entire population, to me, I would be more comfortable and I'd be a lot more supportive. So, and then $2.60 per rate is a very favorable rate. So in my mind, at least on this topic of section 1, I support it for the reasons I mentioned.
Appreciate that.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Yeah, obviously I wasn't part of the previous one at 36, but it's Councilman Tassel and both bring up good points. The numbers just make sense for what we need to get. It's fair across the board. Yes. Section 1, I would be in favor for it.
You know, this is, I would just, I'm sorry. You know, having served on the board for several decades, you know, the old way of doing things doesn't position the town and protect our water users for the future, quite honestly. And this is what we're trying to accomplish here is badly overdue. You know, it's, nobody likes to, any of your, what I call the pocketbook issues, taxes, sewer rates, water rates, you know, nobody likes to see an increase. Everybody likes to see a decrease. But the reality is, from my perspective, that we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the infrastructure that we have in place can be maintained. We can provide the level of service that our residents expect, and we can provide for growth. And if you're not checking all three of those boxes, I don't think we're doing the job that we were sent here to do. So, you know, the tough choices, there's no question about it. But what I see here is with this new structure and rate schedule, we have a very high probability of planning for a catastrophic event that otherwise is not planned. And we, quite honestly, we owe it to our ratepayers to make sure that we are planning for, you know, a major break in pipe that is, you know, very expensive to repair or replace, because if we don't have, you know, the reserve monies there to do it, guess who they pay for it every day, and we're gonna have to do crazy increases in rates. So I think we're taking the right action if we move forward with the recommendations of our acting water superintendent.
Can I make one more point? Oh, sure. No, just, I don't think it's lost on any board member that we keep referring to the asbestos pipe goes beyond there. There's no other significant capital reserve for the rest of the system. And that includes water towers like, well, we have so money budgeted this year, there's no other capital reserve. So it's a bigger topic than just the asbestos, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, no question about it. And I would just say for the record, because I know that some board members will receive correspondence in some fashion from ratepayers and districts that didn't have any debt last year. Well, it's those districts that are at the greatest risk. And here we are, we're going to take out of $2.5 million, we're willing, it sounds like we're willing to put $1 million there to make sure they're protected. So, you know, that argument doesn't hold water.
And I think for that interaction I've had with some of the people in that district, when they understand that very point, and they start to realize that the exposure is much greater than the expense, they quickly come around to, at least the ones I've spoken to deal with them and say.
And I appreciate all this discussion, I really do, because that's really helping me. I support, you know, because we just keep that on it. So that matters.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's important to get everybody's positions in and have, you know, good discussion on it. So, this is what I'm hearing, I think, is that the board does want to take action on, those 3 items. Which is, well, we can't do the 410, $30 million. Well, we can do the administrative removal of the 410 with direction to Jeffrey to pull that out of the operating account and do a capital fund.
Are you looking to do it as a capital reserve account?
He's called it he's calling it capital project budget.
If we're budgeting, that's fine, but if it's gonna be a
Well,
reserve,
they're already, so in our discussions, it will be used for that. It's not just a pot of money that could be used for any kind of capital project.
right, no, I understand, but if it's going to, does he want it, or does the board want it set up as a capital reserve account? Because that has to be set up differently, as you indicated, with the permissive referendum,
Yeah, I think.
or is it just a separate
I
account?
think a separate account is the way I
If
understand.
it's just a separate account, then you can't do that.
Okay, so the board's okay, Jeffrey, do we need a resolution for that, or?
I would do a motion, just so
All
you
right.
have it on record.
So I guess the first motion would be to earmark an amount of $410 that was budgeted for the 2022 water budget from operational account and have it utilized for capital projects, specifically the painting of the water tower and the Van Buren construction project.
Not $410.
I'm sorry, 410,000. If they can do it for 410, I'm okay with that. Jeffrey would
That's
love,
all you're saying?
Jeffrey would love me for that. So, to approve.
We're taking it one at a time, right?
Yes.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And then as we discussed, the second recommendation is to set the capital charge at $56 per EDU per EDU. And that I guess we can do them together, okay, do them together, and the rate per thousand. So so I entertain a motion to set the capital charge for an annual rate of $56 per EDU and set the 2022 water rate at $2.60 per 1,000 gallons with a minimum usage of 36,000 gallons per year. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
This is not ad valorem pricing, this is rates.
Yep.
Okay.
All in favor? I'm sorry, any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So that's that. So for the capital reserve, you'll have to revert to their documentation. I guess we'll pick that up.
The next meeting, can I get a copy of this?
Yes. Wait, our new council members taking care of
Because I took care of an email last night.
it. So basically the only other actionable item he's requesting is in relation to having a full-time administrative clerk. This is a service position. There is a water clerk list and there is a clerk list. We have monies in the budget to establish the position. My recommendation would be to establish a clerk position. We've interviewed, I think we interviewed almost, well, we went through the list. That's how we got the new hire for the building department. And I would recommend bringing that person at the same pay rate as we just hired for the building department, which was $38,500 for full-time. Because we can't interview off the list until we create the position. So this isn't hiring in any way, this is creating the position. We could go all year without filling it, but that would make probably make clerk a little happy.
We have it already, or we have plenty of room in the budget, it's already established.
Yeah.
Position.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, what was the rate one more time?
Annual salary of 38,500, which is what we hired the last clerk for the building. I'm sorry, the last clerk we hired at town hall was in the building department. Was at the same time.
Did you motion to create?
Yeah, so the motion to create the position of clerk at a rate of $38,500 full-time with the usual benefits package.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So I think we're all set on water for now. We have one more item on water, right?
Yeah, I just don't know what I'm expected to do moving forward. Am I still billing semi-annual like we always have been, and monthly, or are you changing it?
Yeah, so when I was talking with Mike, he said, you know, the board needs to decide, number one, what direction you want to go. I believe is we need to transition to quarterly billing. But to get there, you gotta figure out, which vendor you would like to go with. I know we didn't act on the last board meeting, so that more time could be spent evaluating proposals. I don't know if the board had a chance to do that or not, or a chance to talk with Mike on that.
I've read and understand, you know, the information provided by the clerk, thank you. But I had a conversation with Mike.
So the only issue, I mean, we don't have to take action tonight on it, but we don't back us up against the deadline if you're going to do quarterly, because that has to go out March 30. What's quarterly have to go out?
That's up to you folks. We've never done it quarterly. So quarterly to me would be January and then April, right? April 1st.
Yeah, so we have,
We would have missed the January 1st billing.
right, which we knew we were going to do. So basically, to do quarterly billing, we got to have the staff in place. We got to have a program in place. So I don't know what the board wants to do. Do you need more time to evaluate?
Well, my recommendation based on what I know of the situation is that we stay on the same billing cycle and get the resources and people in place. Let's pick the program and let's get this person hired because it feels like it's going to be a significant lift. So if I hear it correctly, it's not, we don't have to, we can make that decision to move to quarterly at any point in time.
Yes.
If we're in a good spot, and we've got through this first billing cycle, then we can make that decision there on the next, before another billing cycle. Does that sound accurate? Okay.
That's entirely up to you folks.
I would support that. I know going to quarterly right now with you would add a whole other level of, it's a lot more work. So I think we don't move to quarterly until we get the person in place. You know, with that being said, do we have to change software now, or do we go, because you are comfortable with what we're working with and there's an online portal? I think you said, correct?
People can pay online right now.
So that's
The only thing that's different with Mike Looney's program is he has auto pay set up, which we can't do with our current program. We would need to move to the new utility bill or to a different utility bill to have an auto pay.
I guess my thought would be to keep it business as usual until we get that person in place that ultimately becomes the overseer of all of that. And then that person, and then it's gone from the clerk up scrap. Essentially, yeah, or it's a clerk and the clerk up, it's not the hand's job at that point. Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask the clerk a question? Do we have to make a decision based on, wasn't there a change happening with our current vendor?
I was told last year around August time that we weren't going to be supported with our utility billing. There was a new program out there. We didn't go with the new program. They were going to not support what we have. So that's what I had presented to you folks a long time ago. I recently found out that that's not true, because there's no way they could convert 70 to 80 accounts within the course of 1 year. So I think my memo states to you folks that you can leave everything as is. They've already billed us for this year's maintenance agreement. If you wanted to just move forward and keep the same program that you have. So it's not any kind of a rush, although they are asking me, you know, what's the decision of the board? Do we want to move forward with it? There's money budgeted for it. That's up to you folks.
Why don't we do this? Why did, what's the water committee going to do it? Meet with Leanne and Mike, maybe do a conference call with Mike, go over that. Work out between, you know, how best we should move forward. Make a recommendation for our next board meeting and acting on it. That work for you, Leanne?
It does, yes. I mean, just so that you all know, normally we would bill March 1st.
Yeah.
They have to go out and start reading meters
Well, that,
beginning of
yeah,
February.
that's why Mike was saying that if you're gonna start quarterly, like ASAP, this all has to be taken care of ASAP, so.
Quarterly won't have to be ASAP because that won't be till April 1st. If you're gonna stay with semi-annual, if you wanna keep things as it is for now, then we do have to move along because they have to start reading meters at the beginning of February, so we need all of those estimated ones in and everything.
Yeah. All right, I think, now am I done with water, Leanne? Okay.
For now.
For my house, it's gonna be looking bad. All right, so next item is, recreation department. We have, an update on our 2007 club cart XRT, which needs significant work. Basically having it reviewed by the dealer, evaluated by the dealer, needs new front half shafts for it, the line plate for front differential, the frame requires aluminum welding. It needs new emergency brake assembly ratchet and front and rear brakes. And so that's approximately $2,300 in repairs. I was looking for possibility of another additional $1,000 in expenses if he has to replace the clutches. So he's looking for permission to spend up to $3,500 to make all necessary repairs. I do have some concerns on this because if you look at the budget for 2022, which was adopted under contractual, and this is where this repair would come from, we plugged in and approved all the numbers that were requested by the rec leader. And for equipment repairs, the request was only for $2,000. So I don't have any paperwork. I don't know if other members of the board do as to recommendation on where this money would be coming from. You know, because if you look at contractual, the total amount is $60,000, and of that, $5,400 is for park improvements, $15,000 is for field care fertilization, $4,000 is for splash pad water, and $2,000 is for equipment repairs. So the question is, how do we pay for it if the board wants to move forward with a repair, or do they not want to do a repair and wait and do a replacement? In the next fiscal year, I don't know. So I'm looking for direction on
I think we could probably go work with the rec leader to find the money out of some other fund, because we even have to. That said, I'm only on two of the other board members that know a little bit more about this kind of equipment. But I'm sure I know it's a good investment on a 2007 equipment. That's where I like a little bit of clarity. I do know that this equipment is used in a heavy way. There's some things that we don't, something else we can work through the trails. So there's some stuff that existing.
So the rec leader is available online if we want to talk to him right now, because I know he's got a couple of comments that maybe we want to hear about he had said he had asked for an additional $2,000 to be added to the contractual for unexpected, and he said we did grant that. So I don't know if we want to just get him on chat or.
That's fine, I'm holding a document for what he requested earlier too, so.
Okay.
That's fine, but again, you know, we have a request to spend the money, but there's no paperwork on, what we require, what account it's coming from, how much is there, and so, you know, it's outside the norm of our typical policy, which kind of wastes the board's time, and we have greater discussion on, you know, paper.
Fair point. Councilman Stewart and I can work with the rec department to get the proper paperwork together. Did you have any other conversations directly?
Just via email, we're supposed to meet the end of this week. Obviously, the other paperwork is also self here, so I did not know that needed to be prepared, and I figured it's just gonna come up where the funds are gonna come from. So it sounds like we're very close with his budget. If it stays at 2,300 instead of additional 1,000, that is gonna be people.
And there will be no other, this is only the first month of the year, so there's other equipment there. So my recommendation would be to table it, have the rec committee work with the rec leader for how we want to, well, first of all, what, if the committee wants to rest this week. There's a lot to go on tonight, and we have a member of the public, that's fine. It's up to you. If you want to hear from them.
Peter, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, you have the floor.
So our contractual budget covers a great deal of things, including equipment maintenance and repair throughout the year. What I had done was ask the board to increase that line by $2,000, which you were gracious enough to do for 2022, knowing that we didn't replace any equipment in the 2022 budget and that a lot of it is older and aging. So any repair money that we spend for equipment has to come out of the contractual line. So it's not that we don't have money in there. We actually have more money than we would have had any other year to make equipment repairs if they were necessary, if that makes sense.
So I just want to be clear. I'm well aware that it has to come out of contractual. That's my whole point. My point is, we have no paperwork. You didn't submit any paperwork as to where you would like it to come from out of contractual. You know, all our department heads and anybody's been around here long enough recognizes that we have a policy. If we're going to be asked to expend funds, to list what the current balance is of the account, what account would be utilized, and how much the request is, with 3 quotes. I don't have any of that paperwork. I'm not sure if any other board members do. It kind of bogs things down here when we don't have that.
So the paperwork doesn't exist. Given the time frame that we were under to try and act, I didn't get that form completed. This is a dealer only item, so there wouldn't be 3 quotes anyway. And again, the money has to come out of the park's contractual line. That is the only place it could come from. But if the board or the rec committee would like, I'd be happy to put the proper paperwork together and resubmit at the next board meeting. If we do that, it should be noted that there's no guarantee the work would get done on the same or a similar timeline. Satch Sales has a lot of other equipment, I'm sure, that they're working on. So our machine is sitting in their garage apart at the moment. I don't know what they'll, have to do, put it aside and move on to other things, and a month from now, potentially come back to it. This piece of equipment is quite essential to what we do during the wintertime as far as trail grooming and winter maintenance in the park. It is the only track vehicle that we have, so any more snow than is currently on the ground is going to make our job very difficult down there.
So Peter, respectfully understand all those points. The challenge is also that the contractual line for equipment repairs in the adopted budget doesn't match what you're saying. That particular contractual line for repairs is like 2,000. So let Councilman and I work with you. He and I will talk after the meeting, we'll be tomorrow, and we'll move through it as expeditiously as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
So before we move off that topic, I guess the question is, does the board want to repair the equipment, knowing that it's 2007, and knowing that it's probably new ones in the neighborhood of 16,000?
Yeah, I guess I would just ask some fellow board members that I know have a little bit more experience in this kind of equipment on their opinion on that. So I'm open to, the recommend open to having any feedback on that topic.
So that would be part of the conversation.
Good.
Would there be, I mean, are there any funds available to purchase a new one as opposed to contractual repair?
Not in contractual.
Right.
I mean, there might be some other options we can, but let the rec committee move quickly to talk to the rec department head and fellow board members, and we'll make some recommendations. Okay. Perfect.
Did you have anything else, Mark?
Supervisor, I had just a few things. Actually, I have a question for council, because I know you're working with SEDC. We've had additional interest in some lots. I'm speaking with Des Brosnan, the president and CEO of Circuit County Economic Development Board, who is well versed in how the park was established, number of lots, who owns the lots. And I know you had conversations with, I haven't followed up with them. Could you share, because we have new board members, just the process if the town were interested, obviously we are selling a town-owned lot, what that requires?
Absolutely. Because it is a town-owned lot, it's basically owned by the taxpayers. In order to sell it, you have to go through a resolution subject to permissive referendum to sell the property. So for example, if at the next board meeting, this board said, oh, we have somebody who wants to pay us $1 million for this lot. That's great. So we're going to accept that, but we have to put that out for the public to say, you know what, maybe that's not good enough. And they have to petition to put it on a referendum, to put it on the ballot for the special election. They have 30 days to do that. If they do not do that within 30 days, then the resolution goes forward and the town just sells the property, just like you sell any other property. You do have to go through some environmental assessment forms and just go through what's known as the procedure process. But other than that, it's just general how you would sell property. And I did speak with Mr. Robson last week about this. He was going to look into a couple things with respect to how the property might be purchased. And I do know that we have appraisal out there, but we don't have any further information with respect to that. So Dennis and I are kind of going back and forth on a couple things. But generally speaking, that's the process. It's just a couple more steps than just going to selling your house.
Yeah, this most recent conversation as a result of a cold call I got 2 weeks ago from a company in California that's looking to expand here in the East Coast. That has already expanded into Idaho and Wisconsin, and they want to get up into the northeastern portion of the United States. And they thought that the location of our industrial park, being close to Route 4, and getting out of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine would be ideal. So it's actually an agricultural oriented business, provides goods for livestock, which would be awesome. And there'd be a symbiotic relationship with our sole tenant there now, who is a supplier of goods for the company. So hopefully they follow up with us.
Great.
Yeah, okay. Let's see what else. That's all I have for supervisor. Committee reports. I had a request from my office. As you know, we moved to accept Tammy's resignation. Her last day physically in the office is March 18th. So my office is requesting approval to advertise for the position. I would like to refer it to personnel committee to see if, we still want to have that position, knowing that it will be a full-time water person.
Well, we can take a separate, but if it's a full-time water person, then that person that duties, it's my understanding that we still have two people in the office, would like to do that position. So
Yeah, we still need, if you recall, we're in this position part-time. So at minimum, we need to have a part-time person there. I guess the question would be, do we want to have a fill a position at full-time, part-time? And number two, do we want to have? I don't know, do you have a feeling tonight? I know the board would like, or my office would like us to move as quickly as possible. Because they're running.
Would it solely be the billing coordinator duties?
Billing coordinator and other support duties probably. Because we still, even though we're transitioning out of payroll, my office is still involved in doing certain record keeping as part of that, which is time consuming. So when that's happening, my confidential secretary is taken away from some of the things I may ask her to do.
Oh,
I mean, my opinion on that, I'd like to see it stay full time, I see how busy they are. The added tasks that get thrown at them, COVID is the example right now, there's always something else that needs to be done in your office, obviously, there's so much. Obviously, let's get that.
So you want to advertise?
I'd like to stay sleeping full-time.
All right, so we'll need a motion to advertise to fill this position. That we vacate April 1st.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries.
Personnel issue, we created a position earlier for, we need to have a motion to advertise for that.
Not yet, because we have to go on the list.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. But I'm gonna, it's not okay.
Good. All right, and it looks like we have a couple of applications to the flag or so. Yep, that's all I got for committee report. Any other?
I don't think you voted on that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Goes on.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Any other committee reports? None. we do need an executive session for an update on some legal issue, but before we go in, I know we have an individual that would like to address the board. I believe it's in relation to some unfortunate news we had regarding a grant that we applied for not once, but twice, and we weren't successful in getting. So if you'd like to state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Sure.
Good evening, my name is Rick Roby, and I'm here regarding the grant that was turned down, and spoke to the Burge Group. I previously had been involved in grant writing in North Carolina, so I'm back in town visiting my brother. We have Lamplighter Acres, and younger brother Dave is there. And, he asked me if I would maybe look into this and assist him to move forward. And it appeared that there really is an opportunity. Looking at talking to the Burge Group, and I asked him questions about the process and some of the things that occurred. And I think that there might be a pretty strong possibility for us, but then they're the experts and I am not. It's not that I don't have any experience, but I'm not an expert. So with this opportunity and it being quite a significant amount of money that the grant would be for, we'd like to move forward and take a look at this. If for some reason they believe that it's just not even a shot, well, by all means, then it's not a shot. I would like to look into it deeper, and I would like to look into it as much as they will let me, and they've encouraged outside information, because just more ideas, they can throw away the ones that are no good and keep the ones that are good. So it looks like a good opportunity, and I would love to see it, and ask for your support. I would ask for your support, and certainly, as I've mentioned, if it's no good, then let's not go. But let's at least do a little due diligence here. Let's check it out and see if there really is an opportunity. It would be a huge thing.
Yeah, so I think the whole board's in support of doing anything that we can to assist in getting a successful grant award. The question for the board, because it's my understanding, talking with Don Rose, the Burge Group, and I know you had appointed questions for him, which I think you got answers to.
We did.
From, okay.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, my understanding is that the municipality is the entity that has to apply, it can't be the property. So the question for the board is, would you like the Burge Group to try again, basically, and apply for the grant once again?
Is there any additional financial commitment on our part to do that?
And there would be, I don't know what it is, I can't remember what we did last time. I can get that information for the board to act on the next board meeting. But I just wanted to see if the board wanted to still try a third time.
Well, if the parties that are the experts believe after further discussion that there might be an opportunity, I'd certainly like to explore. I would like to know, what the financial commitment would be.
Yeah, I can get
show
those
that.
numbers in there.
So we expect money 2 times an attempt to do the right thing. Good business case to do it a third time, and it would be my support.
So you're looking for the town to basically play.
Yeah, because as it was explained to me, and as my past experience I had known, that it is only the town that can apply for it. I mean, if we had the opportunity, like, heck, we would just go ahead and try it.
And we'd let you do it.
And I'm sure you would. But unfortunately, we're not.
So I'll reach out to our engineer and see if we can put a proposal together for action and support.
Great.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
And if you could send me an email, because I won't be here for your next meeting. Well, I won't be here physically. I can.
Yeah.
I can join,
We can do that.
That sounds super. Thank you all. And I
Thank you.
really appreciate what everybody's doing here. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
So at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of getting an update on a pending contract for the town that has some additional legal ramifications.
Second.
Anything else we have to talk about?
Nothing extra.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? So, we'll executive session.
Okay.
All set, man? All right, we're going out of executive session. I'd like the record to reflect that no action has been taken in executive session, which takes us to other business. Any other business before the board tonight? If not, privilege of the floor. Anybody wishing to be heard online? Nobody present in the city, if there's anybody online.
No, I can't see anybody.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So,
Second.
all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone.
You're on this.
This is just a.